Hi students, today we're going to start our very first video lesson. This lesson was taught synchronously via Zoom, but this recording is for our students who were not able to make it to Zoom, or if you wanted to go back and review the information from our lesson. Let's go ahead and get started. In your digital interactive notebook, you're going to be on this page shown. So you'll complete this page of notes, reasons for European exploration. You'll be adding into the boxes that have the yellow outline. So where it says click to add text, that's where you can click on and add your text. In today's lesson, you'll also be using the editing tools to highlight each reason, and we'll get into more detail as to what those reasons for. The colors that you'll be using are a light pink or red for political, green economic, yellow, orangish for geographic, and then blue for social. You have a couple questions at the end here, and we will be going through this information in today's lesson. So what are we going to do today? Today we're going to identify and categorize the political, economic, geographic, and social reasons for European exploration. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with this map here. We can see this is the voyages of early European explorers. This is 1492 to 1522, I'm sorry. You can see the pathways of people like Columbus. We can see Columbus here not reaching mainland North America. He comes to the Caribbean islands here. We have Magellan, who's gone global around the world. Da Gama, who's gone around Africa. And these are some of our earliest explorers. They're the ones that are leaving. We can see all of their routes leave from Europe and come back to Europe. This is important to note because our European explorers are coming from Europe, this section of the world here. This is our map of nations, so it's color-coded by countries. Portugal in purple, red for Spain. England is in yellow, and then we have France in this blue teal color. It also gives you an idea of where those nations are at in Europe. So England is a tiny little island up here. Sorry if my X will move. You can see it in just a moment. That yellow island there, and you can see exactly where the English went. They went to the coastline of North America. There's also an arrow there that points to an area where on the map it says Lost Colony. If you know anything about the early settlements of Europeans, you know that this colony is Roanoke, or the Lost Colony of Roanoke. And that's where they initially land and try to settle and then have to come back a second time. And we'll learn about that in a week or two. We can see here that France has come in the north eastern side of the North American continent. They're going to be based much more around what we consider today to be modern Canada. And then for Spain in red, you can see Spain on the map. Portugal sits right next to Spain. It's purple. Those two are a lot more active, especially in the southern part of the globe, where we can see Spain settling in South America, areas colonized by 1800. We can see that. And even Brazil here, noticing Portugal, where Portugal is going to what is modern day Brazil and purple in South America, and also around the continent of Africa to India. And so as we see European explorers reach out, they're branching out across the globe, not just to the American continents. All right, let's look at this map here. So this is a much more zoomed in, closer map of North America. We can see New France, what is claimed by the French. So these are their claims. And that lines up to where we saw them come into the continent in that northeastern corner. We can also see that the English settlements and colonies have expanded on this map. So that orange or the yellow area is much larger. And between France and Britain, or England, there's some disputed territory. So in the middle here, this lined area is going to be disputed between the two, and that's going to eventually lead to a war that we will study. And then in the southern part of North America, we have kind of Spain dominating the scene here, from Florida over to what is modern day Mexico, down into South America. They're going to have the largest claims to land. These three empires, there's four on the key, but these three major empires are going to be the ones that kind of control the early destiny of what is North American history. Our fourth claim is from Russia, and that's going to be in the northwest corner of our map, so that's over here, where Alaska is today, and that's who we eventually purchased Alaska from. It's from Russia. All right, so let's see what we're going to use today. This is something that's in your digital interactive notebook. You will use this graphic organizer, and it just looks like columns. You'll use this graphic organizer to sort your causes of European exploration. So we'll see this again. Let's talk briefly about what PEGS is. In 7th grade, you use a different acronym, Persia, I believe. In 8th grade, we simplify it down to just PEGS. And P is for political, E for economic, G for geographic, and S for social. PEGS is how we characterize eras of history. It's how we break down and characterize different major events in history, like wars, even how we can look at a state or a region and break them down into these categories. We'll use PEGS all year long, so this is something we want you to be very familiar with, and also to be able to apply your knowledge, your understanding of European exploration using this skill. So speaking briefly about political, economic, geographic, and social, we will be on this page in your notebook. It looks similar to this. You'll use the editing features in slides, things like creating a shape and shading it in. You can change the transparency so that you can still see those terms. You could even create small circles and set them next to each of these as we label them and categorize them as one of the pegs. You can also just draw a line underneath and change the color of the line, or even through it and change the color of the line to match our 4 categories here. It's kind of up to you. We'll leave that to you. We're going to go through these different reasons for European exploration, and we'd like you to tag each of these as either political, economic, geographic, or social. Let's do a quick review of what this means before we get started. When we are speaking about political, this goes back to the warm-up you just did earlier. When we're talking about political, we're looking at government, either local, state, or federal, international governments, kings and queens even as political figures can be considered here as a political aspect of a nation. Economic always has to do with money. So economics could be trade, it could be currency, it could be trade policies set by nations. Economics is how people make their money, and typically that involves trade. Geographic, we have a couple different features here when we speak about geographic. We're speaking about the environment, nature in some cases, the geographic features of a region like mountains or rivers, and also the climate. So is it a hot region or is it a cold region? This has become very important when we're looking at our 3 colonial regions in a couple of weeks. And lastly, here we have social. When you see the word social, you should think society. And that helps us to remember people. So when we're looking at a social characteristic, this has to do with people and what they create and the institutions that kind of support society. In this way, we lump into the social category religion, literature, art, music, education sometimes. These are social features or social characteristics of a region or a place. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to walk you through these causes and we'll discuss them. You can go ahead and set your line. If you know what it is, you see competition between nations, and you know, looking in your notebook, that competition between nations here is political because it has to do with nations. You could go ahead and mark that line red or put that red transparent box over your line there in your notebook. Feel free to pause this video and come back to it. So let's speak first about this. If you know what it is, go ahead and mark it. If you don't, let's talk through it first and then you can make a decision. So this is competition between nations, the Anglo-Spanish War. When we see the word Anglo, you should think English. Anglo-Americans are people of English descent. The Anglo-Spanish War is the war between Spain and England. This is happening 15th, 16th century. This would be a political characteristic. Competition between nations politically, kings and queens want more power. And if they can send explorers to go global to acquire land or wealth, that will lead to more power for them and their kingdoms. Our next one is the Columbian Exchange. This is one that you should be familiar with, but you can see on the graphic here what we're talking about, the trade of goods, natural goods, between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. What we mean by that is between Europe and the Americas. You can see lots of examples of what went to Europe and what came from Europe. But really, this is just the introduction of new plants, animals, and diseases between the Old World and the New World. Exchange being your keyword here. If you haven't already figured this one out, it is economic. I've had some students that have chosen geographic for this because there was a map involved and travel involved between two different regions of the world. I'll accept that one as well. All right, our next one is national pride. If it has the word national in it, that is a clue. And it tends to be political versus social. So we see a lot of people here. We see society, but these are not individualistic characteristics. These are more of, as a whole political group, a national group, this is our pride. And so we tend to tag this one with as a political characteristic. Our next example is the Jamestown colony being settled by the British because they were searching for gold. Gold is money during this time. That should help you to figure out that it is an economic cause. Our next one is seeking new trade routes. Again, you see a map, you think geographic, but when we are talking about trade, we're talking about making money. People trade goods to make money. And seeking new trade routes, especially for people like Columbus, who were searching for a new route to India, he wasn't just seeking out India to find India. He was trying to find a faster route to India so that Europe and Spain in particular could trade with India, especially concerning spices. And this would make that country very rich. Think of it as their economic growth. If they have faster or newer trade routes, then they could grow faster than other European nations around them. All right. Our next one is Pilgrims leave England in 1620, seeking religious freedom. You may know a little bit about this group going back to kindergarten with our first Thanksgiving lesson that you'll usually learn. The Pilgrims, later referred to as the Puritans, are really a group of people that are trying to escape religious persecution. They're seeking religious freedom, a place to practice their religion without being told by their government how to do that or what they should believe. This would most definitely, because it has to do with religion, be a social reason for exploration. Our next one is has to do with the French. Our memory device that we use for this cause, I tend to tell students, think French, F for French, F for friends, so they made friends with the natives, and F for furs. This is going to be their primary economic activity, especially with Native Americans. We have the French coming in using the rivers of North America as kind of their highway system to be able to make connections with the different tribes. They were friendly towards those tribes, so those connections and those relationships became good ones versus ones full of conflict or war. The French also helped to protect natives from British and Spanish threats by the use of their forts. So F for fort also would help you remember. The French are going to stay primarily around those river systems, especially when it comes to the northern part of North America. So what we think of today as Canada. French trading furs, this should be economic. All right, let's talk about Columbus for a moment. He's become kind of a controversial figure, especially in the last couple of months. He is known as the father of the New World, but we know that there are many explorers and even in some cases settlers who made it to the North American continent or to the Western Hemisphere before Christopher Columbus. He's kind of known more for being the first one that settles and comes back again, and that settlement becomes a European controlled territory. People before Columbus that made it to the North American or South American continents came, they saw, and they left. And so the length of time and the settlements that come after Columbus's time discovering the New World is really what gives him his claim to fame. He's in it for personal fame and fortune. So he is exploring, he's risking his life, and trying to find new places in the world, faster trade routes to India, for his own personal fame and fortune. First is fortune. Obviously, everyone does what they do to make a living. And in Columbus's case, coming back and going back again to the New World, that added to his fame. And so he became more famous because of this. Personal fame and fortune, you could chalk this up as two reasons, either economic for the fortune or social for the fame. I'll let you choose. Our next one is Lord Baltimore, who establishes the colony of Maryland, what is the modern day state of Maryland, for Catholics to escape religious persecution. So we have Catholics being persecuted in Europe by Protestants. There's been this religious war between Christians happening in that continent in particular for hundreds of years. Lord Baltimore wants to create a safe space for Catholics to come to the United States, or to the colonies, to practice their religion freely. This kind of sets the precedent, or the what is to come on a regular basis of having religious freedom in the colonies in America. And this is something that we still see today, this concept of religious freedom, starting here with these very early settlements and colonies with Lord Baltimore, who the city of Baltimore in Maryland is named after. All right, let's talk about Georgia. Georgia is another colony. It's our southernmost of the 13 colonies. The colony of Georgia was established for debtors. So those are people that owe money or owe debt to someone else, and convicts, people that have been convicted of crimes. The issue here was that prisons in Britain and England were full. In England and Britain, or that's the same place, England or Britain, if you owed money to people, if you were in debt, you could be put in prison until that debt was paid. It seems counterintuitive to put someone in jail because they can't pay a bill. If you're sitting in jail, then you still can't pay that bill. But in a lot of cases, their families or other people would come to their rescue and help them pay that debt. If they don't have family or they don't have a way to pay that debt, Georgia was the next place they went, because the prisons were pretty full. You didn't just have your criminals, but you also had people that owed debt. And that could be private debt or public debt. In the United States today, we do not put people who owe private debt in jail. Convicts, convicted criminals, were also sent to Georgia. These people worked primarily in agriculture, so they are indentured servants. They have a chance at freedom after they've worked so many years in the fields and on plantations to pay back their debt. If there's debt involved and money involved, think about this one. You should be able to figure it out. All right. This will be your next activity. We will end our video soon. This is where our Zoom ended. I'll go over some reminders. If you want to go to this section of your interactive notebook, this is what you'll be doing whenever we end this video. Some reminders. Your history quiz is always on Wednesday, so this will be your first quiz coming up on Wednesday. Review the activities and pages already completed in your digital notebook and just be prepared for that. It should be pretty easy. Tutoring is available all day Wednesday, August the 19th, if you need. We can email, we can make Zoom rooms and have study groups, or we can talk by phone. If you need any help on Wednesdays, please reach out. Please keep in mind that even though we're not having video lessons, that you're still required to complete work, and you'll check your modules in Canvas for that. This digital notebook, your intro Unit 1, intro to U.S. History notebook, is due this Friday, August 21st. So you have 8 days to complete the activities, and these are organized for you by date and activity in Canvas. So if you go to each day in Canvas, you can see exactly what you're going to do in your notebook. Same is true in your notebook. If you have that interactive notebook open, if you go to the speaker notes at the bottom, or turn on the speaker notes if they're not on, then you can see each day has the date, or each page, has the day that you should be working on that information. Again, those notebooks are due this coming Friday. You will have to submit those in Canvas when you're done with them. You can come to campus on Friday. We set up our quizzes on Wednesday so that we could see who might need help. So if you come in, or if you take your quiz on Wednesday and you don't do well on it, then you can come to campus on for 7th graders on Thursday and 8th graders for Friday to get some help. So we can go over the lessons with you. We can help you with technology issues. The buses will pick you up. You have to be in good health. And then you'll come to school and follow your bell schedule as usual. Keep in mind that if you don't do well on your quizzes as we continue through distance learning, that Friday is the best opportunity for you to come in and get help, because Friday is also the day where you can retake quizzes or take them for the first time if you miss them on Wednesdays. So, for example, you take your quiz on Wednesday, you don't score well on it, and you would like to retake that quiz. Come in on Friday for some tutorials. The quiz will open back up on Fridays, and you'll be able to retake that quiz again. Please reach out for help. Go back through and look through your notes and your lessons before trying to retake a quiz. All right. This is where I'm going to leave you. You have the the drag and drop sorting activity here. So you're just going to go through. Try not to look at your notes. If you need to, then go back and try to recall. But try to do it and then go check yourself and then make your corrections where you can. One of the tricks to learning is making mistakes. Your brain actually remembers information you learned through making mistakes better than by doing it right the first time. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Also, please don't forget to do your vocabulary that follows after this. Please email, call. We will try to figure out anything you might need, any help that you might need. Again, feel free to rewind and replay this video, and we will see you soon in class.